Well, I need to welcome you back, and we're still with the big story for today. I'm talking about World Environment Day 2023 with the theme beat plastic pollution. But as much as we're looking at it, we're also trying to look how we can really better protect our ecosystem from the problems associated with environmental challenges. And that's what we're really having as a major discourse today on the big story, judging just as much as we are also celebrating the day, 150 other nations are also celebrating it likewise, and hence a need for us to do it. Yeah, it's always celebrated every year on June the 5th, and today's own, or rather this year's theme is beat plastic pollution. But anyway, I still have no other person, but a member of the Nigerian Society of Environmental Society, rather, Victor Sonji, right here with us. And join us all the way from Port Harcourt via Zoom. We're now finally being joined by Mr. Fineface, Dunamini Fineface. He's the Executive Director, Youth Environmental Advocacy Center at the National Facilitator of Project with Artisan Crude Oil Refiners and Modular Refineries in the Niger Delta. Hello and welcome and good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike, and good morning to everyone. Nice to be here.
Well, anyway, a nice one and a nice day. We're celebrating World Environment Day 2023. And, well, it's another day for us to look at those issues that truly concerns the environment and not just look at them alone, but also see ways we can better resolve some of the challenges. Just like my introduction, I said this year's theme is beat plastic pollution. But as much as we're talking about that plastic pollution, it also gives us an opportunity to look at other major critical issues as it concerns the environment. And that's where I want you to really help us throw light on. And one of the issues I want us to look at as it concerns not just only Delta State, but the whole 9 other states of the Niger Delta is the issue of oil spill, which between 2012 and 2021, we had about 8,219 of such oil spill, according to no other but the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency of the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Environment. And I know you have always had first-hand information about issues like this. And not just only that, but you've also assessed some of these oil spillage cut across the Niger Delta. So I want us to come into this because we do know how it has affected the livelihood of those living around these areas. But I just want to ask, how have the government held most of these companies that have accounted for this oil spillage? And do you feel the government has even done enough to deal with the issue of oil spillage over the years and as much as it occurs? And do you ever see a strong hold or commitment coming from the federal government, most especially in dealing with most of these issues?
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, it's nice to be here. And it is important to note that, the federal government in relation to oil spillages across the Niger Delta,
yes,
and of course, Nigeria, they have not done enough to address the issue of environmental pollution, especially those coming from the multinational oil companies, because the federal government of Nigeria has a role to play in the oil and gas industry in relation to the extraction, because they have about 51%, in the extraction process. So they cannot hold themselves responsible in the area of oil pollution. It is the communities that have been trying their best to hold oil companies, especially multinational oil companies, accountable for what they do. And it is because of this very serious action on the part of communities holding these companies accountable in what they do that you have massive divestment going on in the Niger Delta region today, because the communities have held those companies so liable for their pollution to the extent that they are no longer comfortable to operate within the Niger Delta, and divestment is going on across board. And that is what we are having. So even gas flaring, government have also put in place certain laws around gas flaring. They have not even been able to keep to those. And flare is everywhere. And we know the impact it has on the people.
Yeah.
Talking about hydrocarbon in relation to plastic pollution.
Yes.
Plastics are produced from hydrocarbon products.
Yeah.
So when extraction is going on, they use the byproduct of it to look about plastic. Apply take over 200 years to decay, if ever it ever decays. So you have that kind of system going on. Now, looking at the oil companies and what the government is doing in relation to all of this, I think we need to see how we can begin to look elsewhere and imbibe other ways of doing things that the government and the world is preaching. Like in Kenya, today in Kenya, you no longer have plastics that much on the streets or in hotels and eateries. They have changed from the use of plastic bottles for water to the use of bottles. The same way you have beer, you have other drinks in bottle. That is how you have water in bottle, and they are reusable. So that is helping to remove plastics from the environment, because we also have a UN study that have said that if steps are not taken, by the year 2050, we are going to have more plastics in the ocean than even the fishes. So it's as bad as that all hands have to be on deck in the area of addressing issues around hydrocarbon, moving away from hydrocarbon to clean and renewable energy as a way of not only tackling the ills and evil of hydrocarbon, but addressing the issue of climate change and associated environmental issues.
Well, anyway, Mr. Fineface, I'll still love to remain with you, especially as you talked about hydrocarbon. And I'm happy you brought everything under an umbrella. And we're talking about the issue of oil spill and also the issue of plastic. And I want us to still remain there as it concerns the livelihood of these persons. How really affected have all of these really been to the livelihood of many Niger Deltans? Because I still remember we had a critical look, and both of us spoke last year. It could be middle of last year, especially during that flooding issue. And you had the opportunity of going round. But you also told me that it was not just the issue of the flood itself, but the problem associated with the oil spillage and how it has almost made the livelihood of these persons non-existent. So let's look at it. How really has this impacted negatively on the life of Niger Deltans when we talk about their livelihood?
Yeah, the people of the Niger Delta are predominantly farmers.
Yes.
Farmers as fish farmers and also as crop farmers.
Yes.
They also rear livestock. So when there is spillages, when there is pollution on the environment, it impacts on the people and livelihood of the Niger Delta people.
So you feel the Niger Delta people are far more affected than any other region in Nigeria when it comes to the issue of pollution,
definitely
plastic and all of that?
Definitely. The Niger Delta is the most polluted part of this world. I don't know any other part of the world that is as polluted as the Niger Delta. And the traditional livelihood of the people is greatly impacted because the people here lived in a better wetland environment that gives them access to the bodies, biodiversity, they could plant and have better crops.
Yeah.
Niger Delta is supposed to even be a better food basket of the nation because we do not only have the land, but we have arable land. Yeah. But because of oil pollution, gas flaring, and oil spills that is coming from both areas, both the one coming from the multinational oil companies and the one coming from the youth who are involved in crude oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and environmental pollution. All these put together has got the people of the Niger Delta, making it difficult for them to depend on their environment for survival. That is why if you check the statistics we have about life expectancy today, you see that life expectancy in the Niger Delta is lesser than those who live in other parts of the country, because everybody here eats from pollution, breathes in pollution, drinks polluted water, and they eat food that is polluted. You can imagine when we talk about soot, black particles that come from hydrocarbon production, including extraction of the products and gas flaring, and then artisanal refining activities. All these deposit on the food we eat. If you check the average Niger Delta man, there are kinds of food and staple food they eat without having to wash them. Yeah. For example, if you go to the market to buy garri, when you buy garri in the market, you can see they open it in a basin. These soot deposit on them. They are so tiny that you cannot see them. People take it home, pour it with warm water, and they eat it. And these things are constantly poison within the body. So as a result of this, the people's livelihood is being destroyed. Why a few people are smiling to the bank with so much money they have made from these processes. So the livelihood of the people of the Niger Delta is suffering as a result of oil pollution, is suffering as a result of plastic pollution. Even we talk about flooding that we are also going to experience this year.
We'll come to that because that's where
it has a lot to do.
Yeah, we'll come soon to that because that's where I want us to go next. But before we do so, Victor Sonji, you heard all he said, and I know you were nodding your head to some of the issues. Yeah. Basically, you've been on ground, especially in Delta State, as it concerns the issue of oil spill and all of that. So how really much of a problem is it to the local Delta? And not just looking at how much of a problem it is, let's look at the steps that have been taken. Are you comfortable with what you've seen on ground as it helps to reduce most of these problems they've been faced with?
I think he has laid a very fantastic foundation on oil spill issues in Nigeria, in the Niger Delta region. Yeah. And even though I've not been really monitoring oil spills across the Niger Delta as much as he has, but I think oil spill is a very big concern for us around this whole region.
Yeah.
The steps taken are usually not far from conciliatory or smoking conciliatory. If you ask me, you just try and solve the problem or solve the symptoms of the problem before you deal with the issue, and the next thing you wait for another oil spill to happen again. You still apply the same solution or what they call solution. Why don't we just solve this once and for all? With a government who holds 51% equity cannot hold you. You can't try yourself. You definitely cannot try and sentence yourself. So the marriage between the federal government and multinationals should be reviewed. But I don't know who is going to review it.
But definitely not me, though. But anyways, let's come back to you, Fine Face, Fine Face. I'm really, really concerned. Let's still look at the issue of environmental challenges that concerns us. And one I want us to look at that you raised up initially is the issue of flooding. Now, if we look at the devastation it caused to the economy last year, it accounted for about, that should be close to $9.12 billion in loss just last year, which is about 4.2 trillion naira when you convert it to naira. And that is more of a concern. And funny enough, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency has even issued a green forecast for what it will be this year. And they gave us a report as early as January when they said, with the early rainfall, which we've now started experiencing, we are likely to face even more worse situation than we did last year when it comes to the issue of flooding. But undermining they came out with that green report, we've not heard anything from the federal government, rather than from state government in doing it. So my question is it that the government is not mindful of the dangers that seems to be facing us in the face in no distant time? Or do you feel they are just relaxed about it and we always want to have that fire approach issues or way of addressing issues? Because as it stands, we've not heard anything from anybody talking about dealing with this impending disaster.
Yeah, very true. Just like you noted and mentioned.
Hello, Mr. Fine Face. I can barely hear you. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, going by even the great legend pop star Michael Jackson's song, they don't care about it. That is what they do. And I know quite well that the government of Nigeria, through NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, they do try their best, but their best is not enough. Because if you look at what happens in other parts of the world, when it comes to natural disaster and the response of government, you will know that what is happening in Nigeria is at a 2% level of rating. Now, information has come since January that there's also going to be flooding, and this is not what started today. The most massive environmental devastation I have seen in relation to flooding was in 2012. That was when I started really following up this thing. Till date, there is hardly any year that you don't have flooding. What is the government doing? Now, the one of last year is still very devastating, and new information have come that the one of this year might even be worse than that of last year. Today, if you are traveling from Port Harcourt to Delta State, you still see that many portions of the East-West Road that is yet to even be completed over the years has been washed out by the flooding. Many communities there are yet to recover, and information has come that this is also going to recapitulate itself this year. So I think that government is not doing enough. By now, we would have seen members and staff of the NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, on ground. We have also called on the various together, what they call State Emergency Management Agency, so that if we have the State Emergency Management Agency, they can synergize with the Federal Emergency Management Agency and be able to address the issue of flooding. They need to carry out some environmental impact of the flooding. They need to kind of carry out census of people that live within the areas that is prone to flooding. They need to carry out a study that gives them information about the damages caused by the flood in the previous year, and then they put this together, use it to forecast what needs to be done, and then prepare to see how they can tackle the issue of flooding. If people that live within the areas that are prone to flooding is within a good number that they can build facilities that can accommodate them whenever we have flooding, then it can be something to do. But in this case, government relaxes, they take no action, they don't want to care, and they just relax until it happens. They come to the media, make statement, we are taking effort, and share bags of rice and beans that is not even sufficient for people, and then they go back again and prepare for the next one. And oftentimes, even when millions and billions of naira is released to bring about palliative to those who are affected by the flooding, this money end up in the pockets of the committees that are even sent without trickling down to the real people that benefit from it. So a lot of them don't want to put in together some measures that will mitigate and try to be proactive in handling the issue of flooding. But they try as much as they can to respond when it is time. And how do they respond? Not to respond in such a way that the next flooding that will come will have a lesser impact on the people, but to respond in such a way that the money that will be released will be shared among themselves in the name of the people. So they need to take steps to do this. As we are talking about plastics pollution today, I am also advising residents that when you throw plastic into your environment, it helps to make the impact of the flooding to be very, very high. So people should try to recycle, reuse their plastic so that it can help to minimize the impact of flooding. And those who are in the habit of throwing their plastic into gutters, people that live within 1 yard to the other should also try to put some traps in the gutter and in the waterways, so that when your neighbor throws away your plastic that will block your own waterway, the trap you have put at the other end will block the plastic for that person to remove. So we need to, on our own, put together some measures that will help us not be able to experience the major impact of flooding.
Well, anyway, I'm happy you brought that up, because that was what I was really going to ask. And I was talking about the awareness of Nigerians as it concerns the environment. Do you feel we are now better, more aware about the issues as it concerns environmental challenges? Or do you feel Nigerians are also, just like you accuse the government, having this lukewarm and nonchalant attitude to the environment? Do you feel we're now better, more informed and aware of the challenges we face as a nation and as a people when it comes to issues that concerns the environment?
Exactly. The people are now more aware. They are now more informed about environmental education and advocacy based on what we in the youth and environmental advocacy, what we do, and based on what the Quest TV, Quest FM also do by creating and using their platform to sensitize the people, just like what we are doing right now. So the efforts and preparation of the people for flooding during and after is more of an NGO work, more of the media work, but the government do less to this, and that is why we are still having issues. We can only be able to sensitize, create awareness about what is going to happen, but the way we are, the resources to respond in the appropriate way is now the issue, and that is where government is supposed to come in. In most time, we even have some partners, like we in the NGO also have partners from outside the country that have impact, have feeling for the people that are affected by flooding, and they even send support to see how you can go and support the people. Well, here, the government leaves everything just for the NGOs to talk, we create awareness, and the people are aware. But how can the people be able to use the information they have gotten from us, from the media, from the civil society to act? For them to take action, it requires resources, and that is where government is supposed to come in. Because the resources they have in their coffers is not their own, but it's something they hold in trust for the people. And that is why they also need to see how they can work about it. Just like we are also talking about subsidy removal in Nigeria today. We said it was going to end by June ending. Provision has been made in the budget, but the president came forward and made a statement that is now grumbling the entire system. Now, it's not that people were not aware, but because of the awareness that has been created that subsidy is going to end by the end of June, and people were preparing by that time to see what happens if nothing happens, and you not just brought in the information the way it is now. So all those things, misinformation, causes some issues that is challenging, and we need to really be able to tackle. When we create awareness, government should take steps to look at the recommendations in awareness we have created to address the issues at hand.
Well, Mr. Fineface, I'll plead with you to hold on. Let me quickly come to you, Victor Sonji. Yeah, because he talked about Nigerians are now far more better aware than they were in 10 years back. But we see them go through some dangerous trend. And you remember, like he said, throw these waste bottles into gutters and other channels that seem to also increase the problem that they are being faced with. So do you feel we are now better, or Nigerians are now better informed than they were some couple of years back dealing with the issue of environment?
I hold a contrary view regarding disposing plastic waste in the drain. We should not even encourage, provide alternatives or encourage them by providing traps and all of that. We should completely discourage the disposal of plastic waste. in our drains. I was going to tell you before now that we will always experience flooding, whether NIMET predicts or not, because of the activities of man. But coming back to awareness,
yes.
I will tell you one of the major problems we have, and I have personally encountered. We have a culture of obstinacy. Yeah, people are just
not ready
to abide, comply with any policy that comes from government. There's this attitude of distrust. The government has made itself less trustworthy. So the government has to build trust in the minds of people. Let me give you one experience I had one time. I saw a woman one night by one of the markets trying to dispose her waste, burn her waste actually, on the road. This market is just by Isoko Road, by the third road. You know, the road consists of the bitumen, the pavement, and the concrete. Concrete is more fire resistant than bitumen. Bitumen does not like anything heat. So I even tried to tell, okay, move your waste from this bitumen to the concrete, to the walkway, sidewalk, so that you can even burn. When I noticed that, I will not be able to even tell her not to burn at all, because I'm not even a government representative. Guess what the woman asked me? Now you get the road. So when you have people like that to deal with in the society, you just know that your problems are compounding every time. What I will always appeal is government should try and encourage those of us in CSOs and NGOs and CBOs that are trying to deepen this awareness. Government should try as much as they can to encourage by providing, we do not even ask for so much, just the environment for people to do for you what you should do for us. Do for you what you should have done for us. So government is often not giving us that support. Yes, that overwhelming support. Most of our programs are done through self-sponsorship, donor agencies, and what have you.
But as a closing remark, Mr. Victor Sonji, what advice would you have? Because as much as we put it on the table of the government to do more to ensure that most of these issues are being corrected, and judging with what one of our callers also said, the government did incredibly well on that account during the era of no other person but the former governor of our Delta State, Emmanuel Duaga. But let's come to it. Now, let's look at our own way of life and how we can also incorporate that awareness in dealing with issues that concerns the environment. And one that's more particular to it is the issue of plastic pollution. How can we start putting that as a major point, and also not just putting it, but also living and abiding with that awareness and dealing with the issues ourselves as a people?
Thank you very much. There are policies guiding waste management generally in Nigeria and globally. There's the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reduce your usage of plastic materials.
Okay.
I, for one, for the past 8 years, I gather all my grocery bags.
Okay.
And I hand them over to a petty trader down the street. She appreciates me so much for doing that.
So she recycles it.
So those are some of the things that we should. Yes, for the past 15 years, we've been running quiz competitions for schools in Delta State across the 25 local governments of the state.
So it's more like creating the awareness.
Yes, we continue to create the awareness.
But I need to really create this, and we need to go. That's the reason we have also had this discussion, and I need to thank you so much, Victor Sonji, member of the Nigerian Environmental Society, for coming and also having this discussion with us. We truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for it.
I'm happy.
And like I said, I also thank Mr. Fineface, Dunamini Fineface on the mining. He's off, and we really want to appreciate you. But more appreciation to come to us, rather to the crew right there that have made this also possible. We really appreciate all of that. But for me, Michael Gobadia, it's a quick goodbye, but God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.